this is a really good snapshot of what institutional racism does and how it's manifested. Okay, so we got the breakdown of the different racial groups. So these are everybody in America, except white Americans. The racial economic strategy, of course, the dehumanization of all of these subgroups. So this explains this, and historically, the strategy behind it. And most importantly, the examples of the legally mandated racism and apartheid with all these different subgroups. See, all these different laws have mandated racism all through history. And you can look at the chattel slavery, one-drop rule, this is for African Americans, Dred Scott decision, slave codes, Plessy versus Ferguson, Jim Crow laws. These are legally mandated racism and apartheid laws. And as you go down, you'll see that they exist for every single person, all the largest groups of color of people in America. An example of changing these laws, you'll see how the resistance, this goes along with the history that's on our walls when we do our training, the history of resistance to racism. And to the right of that is examples of self-perpetuating racism. A lot of that has to do with the internalized oppression that we talk about. But it all ends up in maintaining the construct of race, dividing groups by race, which is, as we know, as I've said, and this lady here has said, that it is a social construct that was constructed just to divide people and just to keep the 1% on top, just by race. If we did, if we're all the same color, what else would it be? Maybe it would be eye color. Someone may recall the woman, I forget her name. She did a experiment with her children when Martin Luther King was assassinated in the 60s, with her children in school, 4th graders, and she wanted them to understand why did they kill Martin Luther King, because she was just teaching that in class, how great a man he was, and they killed him. And so to make the kids understand, she just changed the eye color. She said, hierarchy, blue-colored kids are going to be, they're smarter than the brown-eyed kids. And matter of fact, the film is Blue-Eyed, Brown-Eyed. Anyone seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it wasn't for color, it would be something else. But what we also do with our training, the training is not just a 2.5 day, because the socially constructed division of people in this country based on race didn't happen overnight, so it definitely is not going to be dismantled overnight. I mean, I would say in all of our lifetimes, it won't be dismantled completely. But we at the Institute are in the process of dismantling it on a daily basis. And by doing so, we're engaging all the folks in Winston-Salem who want to come. We even have scholarships. We advise people to come in twos from institutions. We like to have a white person and a person of color to come in twos. And after they do the training and are wowed by it and their eyes are open, and some of the white people are saying, wow, I didn't realize I had all that privilege and I didn't realize this and that. And even people of color, they come in and they say, wow, I didn't know I was doing that, and I was, internalized this racial stuff by the way I act, the way, the way I am, the way my being in the world. They go back and they communicate the information about the training to other people in their institutions. And we have 7 teams now, 7 institutional teams in Winston-Salem. And this is as a result of a critical mass being built within some of these institutions who say, we want to mandate structures that are going to dismantle racism. We want to look at our institutions and look at the policies and procedures that have been in existence to actually uphold racism, because this country was not built on being inclusive. It was built on being exclusive. I mean, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Well, who's the all? Were people of color included that day when they wrote that? I don't think so. Well, as we go on with our training, we built a critical mass, like I said, and we have these 7 teams. And one of the teams is the police department. One of the teams is the health department. One of the teams is, we have several teams that are faith-based. We have the Moravian Church, we have the Methodist Church, and these organizations have made a commitment, and their institutions themselves, the leaderships, have made a commitment through their dollars, giving them a budget. We've been doing strategic plans to look at how racism exists in their policies and procedures, in their systems, how it manifests itself, and how it continues to derive justice. So, you know, social justice within the institutions and their impacts in the community as well. So I could talk a lot more about what we do. One thing I will say is that we're having another training November 20th through the 22nd in Winston-Salem. I have brochures here. Scholarships are available. And I would just also like to say that looking at, someone else had asked the question about what's good about racism. And I know you said, yeah, it's good for the person who holds the cards, you know, who has, you know, all the piles, the silos over here. Well, I don't see that it's nothing good about it, because what it does is it diminishes human existence, all of our human existence. You know, if you go through life excluding yourself from other people just because of the difference in color, then just how much more could your life have been fuller if you had engaged in a variety and a cornucopia of social, you know, of social differences at the end of your life. I'm in this for the long haul. It's a process. I'm on the road, and as one of our executive directors who's working very hard to make his institution, his foundation, which has been 99% white for most of its time, but he is working towards changing that, and he's really demonstrated it by being more inclusive in his hiring practices. He said to some of the old heads in the organization who were kind of fighting it, he said, you know, the bus is out there. We have the bus. We're getting on the bus. Either you're going to get on the bus or you're not going to be on the bus, and you're going to be left behind. And that's kind of like where we're trying to get people to be in their mind frame about being inclusive and dismantling racism, to get on the bus. Thank you.